This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports. You're listening to TGI Sports Talk with your host, Keith Angle, on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Hey guys, Keith Angle for TGI Sports Talk right here on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. How are you guys doing today? Great to have you. Hopefully you're hearing this all right. Hopefully we get a few viewers today. I know we're, I don't know. We get a little time difference here, so we're at least 3 hours or maybe 4 hours early. But I will rebroadcast this at 7 o'clock. We probably won't go an hour and a half. Sure, we're going to go as long as you guys can help me go. Because we're here live from St. Kitts on the Carnival Magic. Today, beautiful day in St. Kitts. We had a beautiful day yesterday in St. Martin. My wife certainly had a good time as she got some brand new jewelry for diamonds for Valentine's Day, which is par for the course on this February cruise of ours. So hopefully you guys are having some decent weather wherever you are in the country. I know back home in the Northeast, it's been cold, but it's going to warm up, and we're going to get some rain. So hopefully where you guys are, it's great. It's been gorgeous here since we left Port Canaveral on Sunday. So hopefully you guys are getting some of the same type of weather. Here's Alan today. Alan will help me out with some comments today, I'm sure. I want to jump into a little bit of college football today. We got some news to talk about with some coaches, with extensions, Auburn keeping Brian Carson, some other, Al Golden going to Notre Dame. Al Golden's been around the block a few times, and we'll talk a little bit about college basketball and the rankings a little bit. And anything you guys want to chat about. I do want to chat about, too, is Coach K's little awkward rebuffing of Tommy Hammaker as he gets ready to leave his post after 40-plus years at Duke. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well, and we'll go as long as we can. I see we've got some guys here, and hopefully you guys will make some comments, bring up some topics, and help carry me along, because I've been a little bit out of touch. I've tried to update a little bit of the news today, and that's a little hard too, because I don't have my normal studio to kind of grab information or have more information at my fingertips. So anyway, we'll start out today with some college football news. Some of the big news was Luke Fickell signing an extension through 2028, only $5 million a year, which is a little bit inexpensive, I would say, for a coach of Luke Fickell's standing, and he may get more than that at some point somewhere. Remember, these extensions are about as worthless or worth as much as the paper they're written on. And by the way, as you guys can see behind me, there's the one of the sister ships. I can't do it very well. Anyway, we'll go back to where we were. Listen, these extensions are worth kind of as much as the paper they're written on. These guys can be gone. These schools aren't afraid to buy out contracts, and so as I've talked about many times, they're free agents. It seems year in and year out. So we'll see. But there's a couple of things. Luke Fickell, I think, staying with Cincinnati, and I think he's a guy that I think may continue that commitment as this team ramps up to get ready to go to the Big 12 in a couple of years. So I think that'll be very interesting to see if that happens. Also, Dave Aranda from Baylor signs a long-term extension through 2029. The terms were not discussed or released, at least at present. So he's done a great job in turning a Baylor team around that I think had 2 wins in his first year there, and got them into a New Year's Day bowl game this year, and very close to being in consideration for the playoff berth. So interesting news there, and also in the Big 12, which is Allen's stomping ground. Alan, I also sent you back a note. I know you had talked about doing a mock draft before the college draft, and I think on this show maybe sometime in March, or maybe early April before the draft. I'm not sure the exact date. Probably I would say it's in mid to late April. Maybe we'll do a show here and we do a mock draft. If we can get enough people involved to make the selections, we can have people come on live and make those picks. I think that would be fun. And we'll certainly be talking more and more about the draft. I mean, obviously, this is an NFL function, but it's still college football based until those selections are made. So I think it's certainly relevant to this show, and I think we will do it. Let's see. It is a bit unrelated, Alan, but certainly big news. Zach Taylor signs an extension with the Bengals, and we'll certainly get into, I think, Friday's show. Again, I don't know what time I'll be on yet, but I think Friday's show, we'll do a recap of the Super Bowl. It was a lot of fun. So we'll dive into that for half an hour, however long we have. Maybe we'll have Carlos on. If he comes in the room, we'll send a link out so he can get in. And if not, we'll just, talk for 45 minutes or so, get that information out there. So again, congratulations to Zach Taylor. Again, great ties to college football. As he was a tremendous player at Nebraska, for sure. Big 12 Player of the Year his senior year at Nebraska. So again, it ties back a little bit to our college football conversations. Other big news on the coaching front: Auburn coach Brian Carson, as I mentioned at the top, who's been in trouble. And I'll be honest with you, from the things I know here, I don't know that Brian Carson should be in trouble. To me, this sounds like from sour grapes from some players that maybe were left over from the Gus Malzahn era, not happy with some of the tougher practices and harsher criticisms. And again, I'm sure it goes a bit deeper than that, but if it was any deeper than that, I do not think that Brian Carson would be continuing as the coach of Auburn University, and he will continue as the coach, as the university president has said, and the AD has said. So he will continue. Some very interesting information there. Also, a bit on the coaching front. Al Golden, who was head coach at Temple, head coach at Miami of Florida, and most recently, I believe, with the Bengals. I'm not sure exactly what assistant job he had, but he has taken the defensive coordinator position with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So very interesting news there, I think, and Al Golden getting back into the college coaching ranks, and I'm sure he'll be looking to angle for another head job here at some point. Some other news to talk about that Alan, anything you bring up, because I haven't been able to dive too much into stuff this morning. Oklahoma's named Dylan Gabriel as their starting quarterback. Again, how much that weighs in. Again, you got a brand new coaching staff coming in there. You're going to name a starting quarterback in February, long before spring practice. It's probably, again, I'm not saying that's not going to happen, but it puts some pressure on that kid, and also, it may make it hard for the coaching staff to back up from that later on. Who knows? So we'll see how that works out. But certainly good news or important news to bring up, Alan. So thank you for that. As you know, Oklahoma lost both the quarterbacks that started games last year, and Shane Rattler going to South Carolina, and Caleb Williams heading off to join Lincoln Riley in USC. So I'm a little distracted. Here it is. We're in the Lido deck, and there's a lot of stuff going on. So hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Excellent point. That certainly will give him a leg up, right, Alan? But, just because they transfer doesn't mean he'll be the starter, but it certainly gives him a leg up. And it's weird to see guys transferring from schools like UCF, because to me, they're the schools that have really used that portal to their advantage in recent years too. But that is, what? I'll tell you what, college teams can certainly quickly rebuild their programs now with because you're just not relying on recruiting classes to come through. You've got this transfer portal where these kids can be free agents 2 times over 4 years. If I'm not mistaken, I think you can only do it twice. Still, again, if you can be a free agent twice in 4 years, that's better than any professional league when you're that age. It's one of the things baseball players are fighting over now. is that type of thing. So anyway, certainly big news coming out of Oklahoma, and that's going to be Oklahoma. Listen, it's going to be a very interesting program to watch with Venable coming in to be the head coach. God, I'm forgetting the offensive coordinator he brought in now, but certainly a big name. I know Alan will remember this as he's an Oklahoma fan. So I'll wait for him to help me out here so that I don't struggle too much. But again, Oklahoma is going to be a big story. The Big 12 itself is going to be a big story this year because, first of all, they're going to be getting ready for Oklahoma and Texas to leave here. We say, yes, thank you. I had to leave. I had to leave, and I couldn't remember for one reason. I wanted to say Jeff Lebo, and I know that wasn't accurate. I think he played at North Carolina years ago, basketball. So I knew that wasn't it. So thank you for that. What else is Alan got here? Arch Manning has reportedly I should probably read down here. It's easier for me. He reportedly narrowed his choices to 2 schools on his decision of where to play. And I know when Rick Sherlock sees this, he'll tell me that Georgia is one of them. Could very well be. I would think, and I'm guessing, Alan, from the article you read, it did not say which 2 schools, or you probably would have listed them here. If you know more, I would say they're going to both be SEC schools. Maybe Texas could be they will be an SEC school, right? So certainly Texas is in play from what I've heard. LSU is in play. Ole Miss is going to be in play because of the family connection. And probably Georgia. Those would be the 4 schools that I think have got the best shot at him as we speak today. And Alan does have Alabama and Texas. Well, I think it would be very interesting from a family dynamic for Arch Manning to choose to go to Alabama. Look at that's a family that's very close knit, and they lean on each other for these decision making during these decision making processes, and it's going to be very interesting to see if possibly Archie, his granddad, is able to kind of persuade him to maybe not consider that. As Archie went to Ole Miss, as did his uncle Cooper. Archie obviously was a great, for those of you younger and don't know, but you should know, Archie Manning was a great SEC quarterback at Ole Miss back in the 60s. And Cooper, Archie's son, and actually Arch's dad, sorry, I said his uncle, Arch's dad, Cooper, was a great wide receiver and maybe the best athlete of all the Mannings before he got hurt in college and was not able to continue his career. And then he got the pressure from our uncle Peyton with the Tennessee connection. But I don't see any way he's going to be going to Tennessee. So I'm a little surprised to see Alabama in the conversation here. And it'll be interesting to see. And again, I mean, where is he, Alan? We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. He can't be more than a sophomore in high school, right? What's very interesting is going to be able to see when does this NIL money start coming into play, or maybe he's the guy who doesn't need it because the family's got money. Because if you start taking NIL money, like the kid who committed to Ohio State before his senior year, you don't play high school football anymore. So I doubt that will happen in this case, but it'll be interesting to see. And, by the time he gets there, you're going to have a much different SEC because Texas will be there. And Alan did mention them as one of the 2 that's been narrowed down to, because I've heard some good things about Texas in their relationship right now with Arch Manning. So we'll see how that goes. Alan's Texas. He's seeing Texas mainly do the NIL as well. We'll see. This whole NIL thing, it's already starting to get kind of messy, as we've seen in some instances. I'm just not sure. I'm still not sure where this whole thing's going to go. I think what's going to happen is that, there's really there's no regulation. There's nobody policing this, right? It's not supposed to be used as a recruiting tool, but it's being used as a recruiting tool all over the country. and it should not be. And there's nobody to police it, though, right? So until the NCAA stops putting it in the hands of the universities to police it themselves, this thing's going to be a mess. But I think there's also the possibility that it will self-police itself. And as these schools start to see they aren't getting return on their investment, they may start policing themselves, and the money will not be thrown around the way that it has been early on. You know, I can think of a few instances. The kid from Ohio State that I mentioned, Miami's quarterback this year who signed a big deal with the Florida Panthers, and D.R. King, and didn't work out for Florida. I don't see how that deal possibly worked out for the Florida Panthers. Maybe it did, and I'm missing the underlying reasons that it was profitable for them. But I can't see where it was, and you're going to see teams start to maybe pull back. Not teams, but boosters and whomever pull back. Let's see what else. It is very confusing to follow, Alan. And one of the reasons, as I said, is every state, every university has got different compliance situations, right? And they're in charge of policing themselves. And until the NCAA steps up and takes control of this, it's going to be a mess. And again, part of the reasons Caleb Williams went to USC, I'm sure there was a lot of booster money that was, promised his way to make this move for, towards USC. And it doesn't matter whether we're talking about football or we're talking about basketball. Those are just the two major revenue generators in college sports, right? But the NIL affects other sports as well. And this is something that will continue to be a mess as we go forward. So, again, you know what? College football stays in the news. And as Alan brought up earlier, the draft's only going to be around the corner. You're 6 weeks away or whatever. Well, I guess more like 2 months away, but still. And the NCAA and the NFL do a very good job of keeping themselves in the news year round now. So we'll see how this plays out. And Alan, as I mentioned, let's start. Maybe this is something I'll recruit you and maybe Carlos and some other guys. Rick Sherlock can certainly pick for Georgia. We've got a few guys. John DeLon is an LSU fan, so we've got at least, we've got a half a dozen schools covered. But what we got to do is, now that I think about it, we've kind of got to do it from the professional side, right? If we do a mock draft on the show, I need to find fans to cover each and every show. We got myself for the Patriots. I've got Alan for the Cowboys. John DeLon may very well be a New Orleans fan. I don't know. I got Rick Sherlock for the Vikings. I got Carlos you can pick for the Jets and Giants for all that matters. But we can find a few guys that maybe do our own TGI Sports Talk mock draft on a college football huddle show early in April. I think it would be a lot of fun to do that. So you guys can certainly comment, send me messages as you see this, and as the college football groups start to see this. I would love to find representatives for all 32 teams in the NFL to participate in this draft. And if we can't find that many, we'll certainly find ways to fill in the gaps. So I think it would be a lot of fun to do, though. We can get Mark for the Commanders and the Steelers. We can get him for the Steelers for sure. We know we can do that. And I guess we could have him do the Commanders. What we ought to force him to do is pick for the Rams, but then he'll probably, pick the worst player that he can find, and that won't work very well because we know Mark's allegiances aren't that great there to his not his native, but his adopted hometown. So Mark Mancini from Mancini Media, for those of you who may not be sure. For you, those of you who just joined us, I'm on this time because I'm broadcasting live from St. Kitts in the Caribbean, live for the Carnival Magic. We'll be live tonight. I'll rebroadcast the show on our normal time at 7 o'clock tonight. I will also be on Roku, have this Roku set up for tomorrow at noontime. And then we'll do our Friday show live sometime that morning. I don't know if it'll be 8 o'clock or not, but maybe after we get breakfast out of the way. we'll do the show live, and it'll also be on Roku at 12. And then Sunday's going to be a little bit more challenging because I'll be traveling and getting to the airport. So we certainly won't be on live at 9, but we will be on at some point. So anyway, right now we are continuing the show live from St. Kitts on the Carnival Magic. And Alan, what's Alan talking about? The Rams' first pick? Yeah, I know, right? Very interesting when the Super Bowl champions had the very first pick in the draft. And it's going to be very interesting to see where they go. Fortunately, don't need a quarterback, so this is not a quarterback-heavy draft either. So I don't think anybody's going to want to trade up into that number 1 spot to pick a quarterback. So I would see the Rams probably holding on to this pick possibly, or trying to replenish some of the draft picks that they've traded, as they've kind of mortgaged a lot of their future in order to win today, which did work out because obviously they did win the Super Bowl on Sunday. So it'll be very interesting to see what the Rams do with that pick of Detroit's. I take that back. Detroit's got the pick. What am I talking about? Sorry, I'm talking about totally backwards, right? That's what happens, guys, when you're on the high seas and you're not fully concentrating. So, Alan, I did misspeak. Detroit has the first pick of the Rams. Alan's got me now. Rams don't have a first-round pick. I totally screwed that up. I apologize. The Rams have no first-round pick, so he was talking about that because Mark would not be able to pick for the Rams because they don't have a pick. And Detroit will have a couple of picks, I think. I don't know what the deal is going to be, Alan. Where are they? I guess they're picking first and last this year. And knowing Detroit, they'll be picking first and almost last next year. So very interesting situation there as we head towards the draft. So anybody who's watching this who's interested in maybe picking for a team, I will, there you go, 2 and 32. So I wonder why they get 2. I'm sorry, 2 is their pick, right? Sorry. So 32 is the Rams pick, right? Very good. Good stuff, Alan. So anybody who's watching this and wanting maybe to participate in our mock draft, please reach out to me. Again, I can't have multiple people picking for multiple teams. So I'll probably put a post up and keep carrying the thread over on TGI Sports Talk's Facebook page, and we'll list the people as they commit to certain teams. And I'm going to commit some people that I know. Dallas, for instance, for Alan. The Vikings for Rick Sherlock, the Packers for Kenny Gifford, some of our regulars, myself, the Patriots, and we'll do it up and get as many people as we can, and then fill in the gaps where we have to. So, Alan, I hope you'll participate in that, and if you know some people that can pick as you start to see the teams we need to fill in for, I hope you'll maybe help me fill those up if you can. So. Anyway, guys, let's pivot a little bit as we are about 23 minutes into the show. Again, broadcasting live from St. Kitts. What a beautiful, beautiful day. My God, October and February, the 2 times we're out here in the Caribbean, are my favorite times of the year. Maybe I should be here full time is what we should consider doing. Let's pivot to basketball. We can go back to football if anybody's got anything they want to really talk about there or anything further they want to talk about there. An interesting story in college basketball before I get to the rankings. Obviously, we have a new number 1. Gonzaga's number 1 for the 3rd time this year after Auburn lost. Bad loss for Auburn last week. I guess not a horrible loss because Arkansas is playing really good basketball, but and they finally get into the top 25, which we'll talk about in a minute. But one of the stories that I found very interesting yesterday, we all know that this is Coach K's last year with Duke. And the fact that Tommy Amaker, who's the coach at Harvard, former coach at Michigan, former coach at Seton Hall, moderate success there, had a couple of really good Harvard teams that did really well in the NCAA tournament. When Coach K was ready to make this decision, Tommy Amaker was certainly interested in coming back to the program and being the heir apparent for Coach K and become the Duke head coach. And it turns out that Coach K had to, and this is all revealed in the newest book out by Ian O'Connor about Coach K's life. He had a very difficult conversation with Tommy Amaker and very much pushed him aside and said no. He had his man picked out. And it was John. Oh my God, what's John's name? Solian, I think. I'm mispronouncing his name, I'm sure. And Alan, you can Google it for me. Since I cannot leave this screen, or you guys will lose me. But just the fact that it had to be an awkward situation because Tommy Amaker was, one of Coach K's first really good players, and certainly a very good friend of the program for a lot of years. He was an assistant coach for Coach K before he moved on and started getting some head coaching jobs of his own. And this is a job that by all appearances, that Tommy Amaker had his eye on and thought he should get a better look than he got from Coach K. And had to be an awkward situation for both of them to deal with. And I'm sure that Coach K has his reasons for not choosing Tommy, and we'll certainly dive into it in future shows. But I found that to be a very interesting story this week in the world of college basketball, along with some big changes in the rankings, which we'll dive into. Thank you. I couldn't read my own writing here. John Shire. Thank you, if I'm saying his name right. I could read it. My S looks like a J, and my H and Y don't look like H and Y. So anyway, thank you again, Alan, for being my producer here, as it were. But I think, I don't know what you guys think about this, but I think it's just a bad situation, a bad look for Duke too. Not to go through more of an interview process. I get that Coach K is leaving and he probably should be able to crown his successor. These things don't always work out very well, though, right? Think about some of the great coaches that have gone out and named their successors, and it hasn't worked out. I think of, I had somebody on the tip of my tongue here. Oh, I think about Ray Meyer at DePaul naming his son. Didn't work out. I think of Al McGuire retiring. Hank Raymond worked out, but then Hank Raymond gave the reins to Rick Majerus, who was not ready. Rick Majerus became a great coach, but I don't think he was ready for that job at the time that he got it. So, great coaches just being able to name their successors. It happened at St. John's with Louis Carnesecca leaving and Brian Mahoney taking over. I bet you we could come up with a dozen more instances where this has happened in both college football and college basketball. And sometimes maybe it works out, but other times it just does not. And we'll see what happens here. I just think it's kind of a shabby way not to get a real interview for Tommy Amaker, as much as he contributed to Alan's got a good one, and Bill Belichick with the Jets, right? Bill Parcells left and named Belichick his successor, but he did one thing wrong there, is he didn't tell Belichick he had the job, and Belichick didn't want it. Actually, I guess if you want to nitpick, Belichick did know he'd have that job eventually, but then decided he did not want it. So very interesting turn of events. So that's actually a very good one. Not college related, obviously, Alan, but certainly a good one to bring up. So I don't know. I hope it all works out. It's, college basketball is going to be tough without Coach K. In my mind, to talk about college basketball in general, college basketball has always, for me, been a coach-driven sport, right? It's the head coaches, yes, especially since the players. I mean, even in the good old days, if you will, allow me that statement. And as I move into my old man yelling at the kids to get off my lawn mode, even back when kids were staying 3 or 4 years, the coaches were still the stars of the program. Yes, they brought guys in, but they weren't going to be there forever. They couldn't play as freshmen for the longest time. The coaches were the stars, right? The Dean Smiths, the Bob Knights, the Ray Myers, as we talked about. There's a lot of guys. There's a lot of great coaches that were wrong. John Wooden. There's a lot of great coaches that were around for a long time that we don't even think about today. And you're never going to see a guy at a university 42 or whatever years Coach K's been there. You're not going to see guys with long-term tenures like Dean Smith, like John Wooden. Hello, Dave Guyette. Good to see you this afternoon. Happy to have you on today. Lou Carnival again. Lou Carnival left for a little bit at St. John, went to coach the Nets and came back because he realized it was a bad fit. So these coaches, Jim Boeheim, there's still a few guys around. Bill Self's going to have a long tenure at Kansas, but is he going to reach 40 years? Very doubtful, So Coach K's there, Jim Boeheim's there. But who's the next guy who's going to be at a school even 30 years? I'm just not sure we're going to see it again. So to me, as these coaches start to fall by the wayside, you're going to see Boeheim fall by the wayside soon too. If not because of age and the necessity to do it because of that, then because of lack of performance and success. Bill Self is not a young guy anymore. I'm trying to think of some other guys that have been around a long time and been in one place, but there's not that many. I mean, guys have been, you think about some of the guys that have coached a long time, but they've been in different places. John Calipari's got a lot of years in, but 3 different schools. Rick Barnes at Tennessee, but he's with 3 or 4 different schools. Rick Pitino, all over the map. So think about this. Coach K, are we going to see this again? We talked about it with Tom Brady. And the fact that he's walking away, and the people that don't appreciate what they've watched, I feel sorry for them. I feel sorry for the haters that are unable to put their petty jealousies aside and really just appreciate what they've watched for the last 20 plus years with a Tom Brady and the 40 plus years with Coach K, because you've got the same kind of people who have knocked Duke and Coach K for years. And you know why? Because he's a winner and because they're consistent. And we like to knock those people down, and it's unfortunate. And it's the same way with Jim Boeheim. I mean, I think a lot of people are reveling in his struggles the last few years at Syracuse and the ACC. So, Bruce Pearl, I don't know what kind of years he's got in. He's probably got in. And Alan, you probably got access to your computer. You can look this up. I know that Bruce Pearl started out, I think, if I'm not mistaken, at I want to say Cleveland State. I could be wrong with the Cleveland State. Then he went to Tennessee. So I don't know. I guess he's got 25 years, maybe. That might be a lot. So could he go another 15? Maybe. But there's things to think about. The money is so big. What's going to be unless guys just want to win, right? And they got this burning desire. What's going to be their incentive to stay for 40 years at a school? And again, you talk about Bruce Pearl. He's not going to be 40 years at Auburn. I don't care how many more extensions he signs. So I think it's one thing to coach 30 or 40 years. It's another thing to do it at one school. And again, I understand that, obviously now I'm hearing music. I thought I found a quiet place, and I didn't. What was I going to say? Even Coach K, right, did have it. He wasn't only at one school, obviously. He was at Army before he was at Duke. But, yeah, 40-plus years with one school. So, again, Bruce Pearl, he'll coach a lot of years, but he's not going to have 40 at Auburn. I'm still not sold that Bruce Pearl's staying at Auburn for the rest of his life either, Alan. He should. He's got himself a good situation. He's only gotten a little bit of trouble once because he's been in trouble almost everywhere he's been. And I said Cleveland State. Maybe it was Wisconsin, Green Bay. Again, I don't have quick access to my stuff here. So anyway, I just want to talk a little bit about that situation and coaches and, whether we'd ever see guys, spend that type of time in one spot again. It's going to be very hard to match that kind of success that we've seen again out of very few guys. Eddie Son's a good one. Let's see, we got Barnes. Barnes was at Clemson. Yeah, I miss Clemson. He was at Providence, right? He was at Clemson. He was at Texas. Now he's at Tennessee. I did forget about Clemson. Good one. It's good to see you this morning too, or this afternoon, Tim. Tim, if you're just joining us, and the reason I'm on early is broadcasting live from St. Kitts here on the Carnival Magic in our yearly or twice yearly Caribbean excursions. So we're on a little bit early today, so thanks for joining us. Good catch on the Rick Barnes thing. Eddie Sutton, that's a good choice as far as but again, not. I don't know. His longest tenure was probably Oklahoma State at the end of his career. He coached at Arkansas, a very short time at Kentucky before he was chased out of town for a couple of reasons, not winning and also some scandals that went on as well. But he did land on his feet and spent a lot of time at Oklahoma State. If I was to guess, again, without having the information in front of me, that Eddie Sutton spent a lot more time at Oklahoma State than he did anywhere else. Arkansas, he was there quite a while. Really turned that program around and turned it into a national power as well. If I'm not mistaken, he got them to, I don't know if he got them into a Final Four, but he had them in a bunch of Elite Eights, I know, during the time the city. Moncrief was there, and Ron Brewer and some others. So Eddie Sutton, great coach. So that's a good catch. Here I'm thinking about, so again, we're talking about long-term guys. So there's a lot of them. But think about the guys who have got the majority of the years. Think about just 4 years at one school. How many can you think of? Right now, I got Boeheim and I got Coach K. I mean, you go back and maybe guys like Hank Iba, Adolph Rupp. Bob Knight didn't have 30 some years at. Maybe he got to 30. With Indiana, not quite sure before he was chased out of town. So it's again with the money involved and the pressure involved. Let's concentrate on being at one school for a long time. I don't see it happening. I don't even know if I see guys having 30, 40-year careers anymore. Think of some of the young guys today. Are they going to be around 30 or 40 years from now? Is Bill Self going to have a 40-year career? Maybe. It's been there a while. Some of the other great young coaches around. Mark Few, maybe Mark Few. Mark Few could be a guy. He doesn't seem to want to leave Gonzaga. He's now been there a while after replacing Dan Munson. Mark Few could be a guy that could have some Pearl was, I know Pearl was an assistant at those schools, and then he went to his first head job was Southern Indiana, then Milwaukee. So that's Green Bay, Wisconsin, isn't it, though, Alan, when you talk about Milwaukee? Tennessee, where he got in trouble, and now Auburn. Yeah, he's going to have a long career, definitely. And again, let me know about that Milwaukee, because I do think that's Green Bay, Wisconsin is the school, but I'm not positive again. So anyway, good stuff to ponder and stuff for us to talk about in future shows, right? I mean, you got to, as Coach K winds down his career, I'll be rooting for Coach K to have a good run in the NCAA tournament as he winds down this tremendous career. And I hope you guys, as you watch this and we talk about this topic further going forward, and it's something that's kind of slipped my mind as we've had the shows. That's a good one. Maybe Porter Mosier. I mean, he's had a couple of stops now, right? Had great success. He's still fairly young. But again, with the pressure in the Big 12 and the money these guys are making now, do you really think he's going to be there at Oklahoma for 30 years? If he's successful and starts winning, 25 games a year, going to the NCAA tournament every year, maybe. Not sure what your yes is for there, Alan. I got a couple of things in there, so you can elaborate there if you like. So, again, I just hope guys appreciate Coach K on the way out, because there's so many Duke haters out there, right? And again, I think they hate Duke and they hate Coach K for the same reasons they hated Derek Jeter and they hate Tom Brady and They hated the Yankees, and they hated the Cowboys when they were good, and they hated the Steelers when they were good, because we like to build people up and teams up just to slap them down. And it's just nuts in my mind what we do in these situations in this country sometimes. And it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad. Tim West says Bobby Hurley. Yeah, well, let me ask you this, Tim. Are we talking about Bobby or are we talking about Danny? Because Bobby's going to struggle and has struggled out at Arizona State. Did beat UCLA here in the last couple of weeks, but Danny hasn't really set the world on fire out there at Arizona State. But Danny, even though they've had a tougher week this week and their team struggling to score points this year, Danny Hurley, to me, is a better possibility to be a long-term candidate in the place he is right now than Bobby would be. And you can certainly comment further, Tim, and let me know if you do mean Bobby. Possibly. I thought Bobby Hurley was going to be a great coach. I mean, he did great things at Buffalo before he took the job out there in Arizona State, but it has not transferred very well to the power conference out there at the Pac-12 as far as consistent performances. So I'm curious if you did mean Bobby or if you meant Danny. So good stuff. All good stuff. Great stuff you guys keep bringing up. Keep bringing them to me, too, because we'll talk about this. We'll get into this topic some more later date. But this is a good one for today because, again, I needed something to help carry me through at least 45 minutes as well. What's Tim got here? Also with the NIL, does this decrease the value of coaches? It's going to – it decreases their value as recruiters, right? In my mind, at least. I mean, you don't have to be as good a recruiter to get somebody to come to your school if you've got boosters that are willing to fork over money to get these guys to come, which again, Tim, if you weren't with us earlier when we were talking about the NIL, I mean, this is not something, and it says very clearly, not to be used as a recruiting tool, and how the NCAA thinks without some kind of police force policing of this, other than the conferences and the universities themselves, how it's not going to be used as a recruiting tool. This thing is going to get bastardized so badly. It's just ridiculous what's going to happen with this thing. And something's got to happen. So, but you're right. If the NIL continues, unfettered the way that it is right now, it will certainly decrease the need to have a really good recruiting coach or even a staff that he brings in to help recruit, which most of these guys do. And Tim does mention that he's talking about Danny. That's no problem. Again, that's an easy one to mix up, right? Thinking more on basketball as far as the NIL, I agree. I mean, it's the same situation whether we're talking about basketball or football. It's going to be a big problem. It's going to be misused as a recruiting tool. We've seen it more so now in football than we have in basketball, but we're going to see it more and more as we go forward. And Tim's totally agreeing on the policing issue. There's got to be some uniform way to police this. You cannot, and you look at, if there's one place you cannot say, okay, you guys police yourselves, it's anywhere in NCAA athletics, because that is just a recipe for disaster. And I think we all know that. So anyway, you guys can feel Tim and Alan, you guys have done a great job helping me bring this along. And we're going to go another, probably go another 15 minutes or so. I just want to make sure that we got enough to fill in for Roku on tomorrow at noon and got some content. Again, we'll be on Friday. Myself probably won't have Carlos with me. But if Carlos comes around, we'll probably invite him into the show. We'll recap the Super Bowl and whatnot. But before we go today, we'll talk a little bit about the baseball labor issues, I think, Friday morning, too, if we have time. I'm not sure what time we'll be on live, that's all. We'll be on before we're due to be on Roku at noon. Might do it live at noon, so do it all at noon. Not sure yet. Let's take a quick look at the top 25. Gonzaga, as I said, for the third time this year, moves into the number one slot, up one, taking the place of Auburn. Auburn with a tough loss, at 1 point overtime loss, I believe, last week, which hurt them, obviously. But they dropped just one spot to number 2. Arizona moves up a slot to number 3. Kentucky did move up to number 4 this week, but they had a loss to Tennessee last night, I believe, so that's going to hurt them. But for now, they're number 4. Purdue with a loss this week falls from number 2 to number 5. Kansas has had a good week. They're up a couple of spots now, back to the 6th spot. You know, when you start looking at Baylor moved up 3 spots back to number 7. Baylor's starting to get healthy, but then they lost. And I know that Alan, you're all over this Baylor team as well, but they had a tough loss of one of their better players for the year this week as well. Providence, despite losing, well, not despite, they'll probably fall backwards. They had moved up to number 8. You know, they've been climbing the rankings all year and battling some, I don't know, some bad press of people that are thinking, you know, they were one of the luckier teams in college basketball just because they were catching teams when they had COVID situations or other injury issues and whatever. I mean, they're still winning and doing very well in a good conference, a much improved conference in my mind. In the Big East, they moved up to number 8. Duke fell a couple spots to number 9. Villanova moved up 5 back to the top 10. So you got 2 Big East teams in the top 10. But as I was going to add, Villanova just beat Providence here the other night as well, in a big game in the Big East. But you look at, you know, they're going to both get in. And as we're looking at these teams and we start looking at teams for the number 1, and we'll go through the rest of the top 25 here in a second, but let's start looking at the 4 seeds. That's all we'll cover here as far as bracketology goes today. You guys can certainly offer up your opinions. I think 2 of these slots are solid, probably no matter what happens the rest of the year, unless they totally fall on their faces. Gonzaga and Auburn are locked for number 1 seeds. And then you're going to have a pretty good battle amongst Arizona, Kentucky, Purdue, Kansas, Baylor, and maybe the winner of the Big East. Maybe the winner of the Big East can get themselves up to that 1 line. Probably more likely on the 2 line. But I think any one of those teams could take those last 2 spots, or any 2 of those teams could take the last 2 spots on the 1 line for sure. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. And maybe even one of these teams from, you know, that are still outside the top 10 can get hot, win out their games, win their conference tournaments. A team like Texas Tech, a team like Illinois, could potentially get on a roll and maybe move up to that one line. But it's going to be very difficult. Tubby Smith steps down as High Point's coach. That's interesting news. I did not know that one, Alan. Tubby Smith, I think Tubby Smith is one of the most underrated coaches in the history of college basketball. Tubby Smith, you know, did very well, obviously, when he was the head coach at Tulsa. You know, early on in his career, he moved on to coach at Georgia. He won a national championship at Kentucky. He may very well. I think Nolan Richardson beat him, was the first a black head coach to win a national championship, I think. Again, I got to believe he beat him, right? Because that was in the early 90s when Nolan Richardson's great Arkansas teams, Nolan Richardson had beat UCLA. And I know that Kentucky was later on, and after Rick Pitino had left Kentucky. But a great coach, great coaching career for Tubby Smith. So, we were talking about great coaches before, and certainly Tubby is one of them. Definitely going to be a Hall of Famer. Baylor at Texas Tech tonight. That's a big game. All these Big 12 games are really important now, right? Because there's just such. I mean, every team. I mean, they're still talking about West Virginia and Iowa State having a chance to get in the tournament. Again, I don't have all the numbers I would normally have as far as last in, first four out, next four out, and things like that. But these guys have been hovering around that bubble all the time with very bad conference records. So somebody needs to get hot to be able to take over. We talked about the Big East potentially being able to get hot and get those, but teams on the bubble just getting in. Big 12's got a lot of teams that are still going to be Kansas or Baylor. As far as getting on the number one line, definitely. If that's what you're talking about here, I don't know if that was Kansas or Baylor on the number one line. They could both get there, to be honest with you, depending on what happens above them, right? They need help. They need the Arizonas. Look at Arizona right now. It's the best team in the West, or at least the Southwest, West Coast South, if you will. I mean, with UCLA falling apart, I wouldn't be surprised to see UCLA falling out of the top 20 here soon, if they top 25, if they don't right the ship here soon. They're down to 13, and I'm shocked they didn't fall further than that the way they've been playing. So let's go down here a little bit. We'll finish out the top 25 here. Texas Tech, who we just talked about, Allen, is at number 11. That's certainly a team that has got some work to do to maybe get on that 1 or 2 line, but certainly is in the tournament. Illinois, another team in the Big Ten. The Big Ten is another league that's really, really deep, and it's going to be very interesting when they start comparing some of these teams in the Big 12 and the Big 10, that are not really strong conference standing wise, but how are you going to match them up with some of the teams from the ACC and the SEC that are down a little bit, and how are you going to, or even some of the non-traditional majors, right? The A10, you might want to think about 3 teams there rather than taking 9 from the Big Ten. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting selection Sunday, and we'll do our own bracket show before that happens as well. And I'm also thinking about, by the way, that Sunday night doing a live show during the NCAA selection show. So I think we'll do that. Again, at number 13 was UCLA. I'm shocked that they haven't fallen further than that myself. No, I'm having trouble reading my own writing. I think Tennessee at number 14. No, that's not Tennessee because they dropped 8 spots. That's Houston. Houston drops 8 spots. They've had a tough week, down to 14. They were as high as 6. Wisconsin at 15, always tough out come Big Ten tournament time and in NCAA time. Tennessee's at 16. I just mentioned they're up 3, and they're going to probably have a bullet on that after beating UK, one of the hottest teams in the country last night. Ohio State is down a couple spots to 18. Big Ten is really tough, as I keep saying. Michigan State, another team, they're very likely to be falling out of the top 24, 25 here because they'd fallen all the way to 19. They were in the top 5 earlier in the year. They fall all the way to 19, and they end up losing to Penn State last night, which is a really, really bad loss for Michigan State and Tom Izzo. Usually a team at this time of year is peaking. They are not certainly peaking right now, and there's still time to get the ship righted, but I'm not sure that it's going to happen. Texas is at number 20. I believe that's where they were last year. Can't read my writing here. Another new team. This is Murray State, who we talked about last week, being the number 1 ranked mid-major team in the country. They're at number 21. Wyoming moves into the top 25 for the first time this year, playing really well out there in the Mountain West. Watch out for that team. Arkansas, well-coached team by Eric Musselman. Really had a good team last year, good tournament team. Had a tough loss to get knocked out of the tournament, but they are now playing really, really good basketball as we head towards conference tournament pretty soon. UConn falls all the way down to 24. Still a dangerous team. They'll be an NCAA tournament selection. They play really good defense. Tim West mentioned earlier that really well coached under Danny Hurley. Their problem right now is putting the ball in the basket And that's a problem come tournament time, man. You need that good defense, but you need good, experienced guard play and guys who can put the ball in the basket, and that'll help them. And for the first time in a long time, Alabama, Coach Oates moves into the top 25. They were a really good team last year. Struggled with some up and down play this year, but they're now in the top 25, and probably I would say in the NCAA tournament, as we talk about now. And Alan has just posted, because is this my guy, Joe Lenardi, by the way, Alan? Because he's a guy I like to use. But anyway, in Alan's first four out here is Memphis, Michigan, San Diego State, and Florida. Makes sense. I mean, again, Memphis, I'll be honest with you, I'm starting to think Memphis is in right now. I think Memphis is in. They play better. Penny Hardaway hasn't helped himself out there a lot, but I think Memphis is better than people are giving him credit for. And I think it's possible that this team now is probably off the bubble, and I think they're in the tournament. So that's one I do disagree with. San Diego State got off to a great start out there in the Mountain West, and they've fallen backwards as a team like Wyoming has kind of moved up. Boise State's moved up. It's going to be very tough for San Diego State. They're going to have a really good tournament. And Florida has been kind of, again, we talked about the SEC not being, in my mind, not being quite as deep as it's been in recent years, especially early in the year. I was not saying that, but now as we've gotten deeper into conference play, it's become very obvious they're not as deep as they were. And let's look at this last four in. This is very interesting to me because I keep seeing this week in and week out. And Alan, do me a favor, comment whether this is, I don't know if this is you and your picks, or this maybe Joe Lenardi, where I like to take them from ESPN. I'm just curious. Not that it doesn't matter to me. I'm just curious. So I can, okay, good. Alan says ESPN. So very good. So that's Joe Lenardi. Still has Iowa State in the tournament, which is shocking to me. Good basketball team. But when you look at that conference record, I'm not sure how they can put them in there. We talked last week that Oklahoma had improved their conference standing. Still, I've never been a fan of teams that are going to be, if you're not 500 in your conference, I'm not sure you ought to be in the conference in the NCAA tournament. I mean, maybe that's too harsh, and maybe that's going to leave some good teams out of the NCAA tournament. But I mean, if you can't be 500 in your conference, how can you warrant being in the NCAA tournament? Again, all great stuff for us to talk about as we go forward. So thanks for that. And by the way, the other teams he's got is Creighton from the Big East, BYU from the Mountain West, and Oregon from the Pac-12. Pac-12 is going to be a very interesting case with UCLA playing so badly, Arizona playing so well, USC so up and down. Is the Pac-12 going to get 3 teams in? Will they get 4 teams in? I don't know. I just don't really know where we're going to end up there. And we'll certainly dive more into it as we go forward. Yeah, I get out of conference strength of schedule, Tim. I do get that argument. But again, I don't see you've got to win. I mean, Jesus, I go back to guys. Remember, I'm an old timer, right? I go back to when if you didn't win your conference, you didn't get in the tournament. And I don't want to go back to those days, right? But to me, you got to be. I get out of conference schedule. I know Iowa State played a good out of conference schedule. I know that Oklahoma did. I know that some other teams that are going to finish well under 500 in their conference did. But to me, one of the criteria should be you got to be at least 500 in your conference. I don't care if you go out in the first round of your tournament. But if you're not at least 500, how do you get in? I understand the out-of-conference stuff, but I know, and the goal is to get the best 68 teams down to 64 teams after the first 4, obviously. But look, I just don't. This is something I waver on. I waver on greatly. So we'll see how that all plays out. I do get your points. I think Alan has been talking a lot about Iowa State getting in because of that out-of-conference record. But if you got a really strong league, you still need to finish at 500 or close to it, and maybe they will. They still could. I think. I mean, we talked about this last week with Oklahoma, and I think Oklahoma is getting themselves close. And a lot will hinge on the conference tournaments as well, right? So, no, okay. Yeah, I wasn't certainly. And again, I get the reasoning, but it's just hard for me to say that some of these other mid-major schools shouldn't get an at-large bid when they finish, with one loss, two losses in their conference, and then they go out in their conference tournament. They can't get an at-large bid because of Iowa State or Florida or something. I'm just throwing them out there. I don't know exactly what their record is without looking, that they get in. So I don't know. It's something to think about. Think about Iona. Iona with a tough loss to Siena, my hometown team from the MAC in the Albany area, knocking off Rick Pitino and Iona the other night. And they also lost this past week, I think, to another conference loss. I think it was two. I don't think it was St. Peter's, but anyway, they had another conference loss. They go out, if they lose their conference tournament, they're not going to get in. Last four byes: Wake Forest, North Carolina, Oklahoma, and San Francisco. Well, all good choices. San Francisco's had a really good year out there in the West Coast Athletic Conference. That conference is deeper. It's normally Gonzaga and St. Mary's, and it's now got Gonzaga's played well, St. Mary's has played well, San Francisco has played well, Santa Clara's played well, and knocking off some of these, not Gonzaga, but they've knocked off St. Mary's recently. They've knocked off San Francisco recently. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens out there. So anyway, guys, I got to wrap it up here as I've got to, I got another commitment that I've got to get to. Looks like the Regal Princess, if we look out here. If you can see her, she's actually leaving port now. And we'll be leaving here in another half hour or so. So I've got to get myself cleaned up and get ready to get to the Alchemy Bar before dinner, so I can have a couple of martinis before dinner. And I'll see you guys later. I appreciate you joining us right here, TGI Sports Talk College Sports Huddle. This show will be live later on at 7 o'clock. Not live, I'm sorry. Plausibly live. Recorded live at 7 o'clock, and we'll be live, plausibly live on Roku tomorrow at noontime. So I do appreciate you guys being with me. I'll see you later. I've been live right here at St. Kitts on the Carnival Magic, and I hope to see you guys Friday morning with TGI Sports Talks. Are you serious? Whether Carlos will be with me, we'll kind of see. Alan's got another comment here I don't want to leave out before I wrap up. Last four behind Rutgers, Kansas. Yeah, Rutgers is a very up and down team, by the way, right? Kansas State, another Big 12 team, was played up and down. Virginia Tech and Belmont. Interesting. All right, guys. Tim, thank you. We will see you later. I'll see you Friday morning at some point, and Sunday will work out as well. But Keith Angle, TGI Sports Talk, right here on the Northeast Stream Sports Network. See you later. Have a great one. Bye-bye.